I think our camera's a little crooked, I just realized. So people may be ever slightly little tilted. So anyway, welcome. Tips of the bar. Tips from the bar.
There we are. I see it's popping on. I'll pop
there
on
we
here
go.
so I can see.
I think that levels it off just a little bit.
I'm going to turn this down so we don't
Tips from the bar. It's our weekly foray into things that are happening in the law or just information about the law. We're half of who we used to be.
We are. Everybody else is not here today.
Though mass-wise, we're still we're majority.
We're talking pure poundage. We're good. So
too big. Age. We'd have them on age. We'd have them on size. We'd have them in a number of different ways. But
Isaac's with a client, and I believe Jordan's picking up her husband who's been out of the country.
Right. What a lovely day to drive to the airport and fly into the airport. I mean, on one of these like Noah-esque rain runs right now. I was driving to. We were just talking.
Can you get sad in 2 days? This season.
Yeah, I have. I've gotten totally
bummed.
Yeah, totally wiped out.
Yeah.
Had a really long day on Saturday. We had a big day on Friday.
Huge.
I mean,
man,
you guys didn't.
Showing
you weren't even here for the fun part, our financial meeting.
Yeah, that was during the day.
We had a half-day meeting talking about all things financial with the law firm, and then we had just a wonderful open house here at the new digs, which is where we are tonight. We are not on assignment since we were late, and the weather just was awful.
But you know what? I'll tell you what, though, man. I was really impressed with the turnout.
Yeah, we had a great turnout.
Everybody had a good time. We got
really, it was great. I mean, we love this office space.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, I tell people we feel like we earned it after. We were in a room not much bigger than the room we're in now as our whole office.
Right, rather than just having one of the rooms.
And now we're functional. We're actually in what we would refer to as the client intake room or the client meeting room tonight because it's one that has pictures on the wall.
But here's how cool this is. This morning, we had 2 meetings with different clients at the exact same time in the office.
Wow! See,
so that was
before.
Isaac was in here, and I was next door with the client, and it was it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like, wow, we can really do that.
Yeah, it seems like little things, but I mean, it's one of those things where we've had the opportunity to pick a place and have an opportunity or figure out what we need, and then when the opportunity presented itself, we were able to take advantage of it. I don't have my reading glasses, I have my contact, and I can't even. It's remarkable how little I can see. But yeah, Friday night we just had this wonderful time. We really appreciate everybody coming out, and we heard from some folks that couldn't make it, but we just had. It was really great to show off the new place and get to know some folks.
Have we put the signature board on it?
I think
posted it.
Yeah, I think Isaac posted it.
I know Valpo Life posted it. I don't forget. But so you can check it out because it's kind of cool. We had last minute. We came up with an idea to go ahead and make one of our whiteboards where people can come in and sign that they showed up, and it was really cool. It was really kind of neat to see all those names on there. At first, I looked at it and I thought, I hope it gets partway filled up at least, but it filled up pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Pretty filled out. I was impressed by it.
We appreciate Valpo Life put up Anna spent some time with us talking to all of us. Pictures and Chris Malman stopped in for a little bit as well, and but Anna wrote up a story. She got it posted. I think because I got the Google alert.
This is the next day.
Night, yeah.
It was that night or the next morning.
Yeah, so
real quick.
They're on top of it. It was a great time. And then Saturday I went down to it was just I haven't told my daughter this, so maybe a week out. But it was videotaped a presentation that she put together talking about human trafficking. I'll tell you, it's human trafficking. I think people probably have in mind this international issue, the scandal of bringing people over and selling them into trades here or whatever it might be. It's a huge issue right here in Indiana.
Yeah.
And it's not just like people in chains and shipping them overseas one way or another. The coercion, the fraud, the stuff that goes on, and then just the abuse that the people lay over these folks that are under their control, and just the awful stuff that they put them through. The presenter, the speaker that my daughter Allison brought in for this presentation, it was going to be geared towards hospitality majors down at Purdue, because the hotels, it's a huge issue where this takes place in hotels, like around our area, big in Indianapolis. There was a big nationwide sweep. What do you call that when you have a sting operation sort of thing? And they rescued 84 people in a number of cities across the country. And it was, it was here, it was North Carolina, it was Texas, it was all over the place. And then there was another arrest last week in Indianapolis, and the group is called Purchased, and you can find information about them at purchased.org. The lady who started the organization came up and presented for about an hour, and she shared a video of a young lady who had been abducted when she was 16. And the long play game is not the right term, but the con is awful. I mean, it was a 16-year-old girl who, people, when they get a little isolated, they're just looking for attention. And someone gave her the attention that she was looking for. And it wasn't like, hey, boom, now you're gone. It was like over the course of weeks that they coerced this girl into, drifting away from her family and drifting closer to this other group. And then next thing you know, they're gone. They're in another state. She's being, just used and abused in circumstances, again, not in crazy, dark, seedy corners. It's in suburbia USA. These folks pay money. They bring these girls in, and it's it's awful.
I had some friends in law school that were really big.
Yeah, you mentioned Annie and some folks.
And I know they were very involved, and that was the first time I really heard more about, everybody kind of has that, like you said, that international mental image of, somebody being on vacation, getting snapped up off a beach in the Bahamas somewhere. But yeah, it's more pervasive than what you realize.
Yeah. So there's actually, yesterday there was a,
and by me saying they were involved in preventing it.
Right. Yeah. Awareness, awareness is a huge thing because it's happening right around us in some cases. And, when you have a big event, they're talking about, when you have a big event like the Indy 500, there's a lot of bad things that happen on the periphery of that. Super Bowl,
Super Bowl,
big things like that. So you have these things that'll go on. And so the reason they wanted to try to appeal to hospitality majors was there are some signs that you can see. Somebody asks for a specific room away from the central area, but close to an exit. And you've got people coming in and out of that room. They're not getting room service. They're not getting housekeeping. They're paying with cash. And so there's just a variety of things that they were trying to help the kids understand.
And you recognize that stuff too. I used to work when I was way back when I was an undergrad. I used to do the night auditor job at a hotel in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And you could tell, not that stuff like that was going on, but you could tell you could notice the people that were coming in that weren't supposed to be together, like they were cheating or something. There was one guy that we had at the hotel that he would come in, he paid for this girl and her kid to stay there. So the theory was that he had gotten his girlfriend pregnant and was paying for her to live there, and just to keep it off his family's book. So that's what we kind of figured that it was. But the hoteliers, that's the ones to go after to really help them identify the warning signs and stuff.
Yeah. So all that to say, I videotaped it to cut up and do for segments for the future.
Did you hit the red finish button?
I did not hit that. I didn't Facebook Live it, but somehow I dropped the audio halfway through the recording. So we'll do that. But there were some good questions. There were a handful of kids that were there, and but again, I think there's several agencies in Indianapolis that focus on this work. Oh, I started to say, so yesterday the prosecutor down in Indianapolis and the state bar had a human trafficking CLE.
Like a class.
Yeah. Which was talking about the problem in central Indiana. Mm-hmm. We are the crossroads of America. And so there's a lot of things that come across our state, good and bad, unfortunately. So as soon as it's like one of those things, once you hear about something, now you hear about it all over the place.
Oh yeah, you see it everywhere.
So it's amazing how prevalent it is. And it was awesome to see my daughter step out of her comfort zone to be able to schedule an event, go through the logistic process and call somebody to come up and do the presentation. It's actually part of a class that she's taking. So it was neat to be down there for that. Unfortunately, I messed up the recording, but we'll make it work.
Well, you weren't being graded. So
I know, but we'll get it to work out. And she's going to do a website as part of the presentation she's doing as well. So it's something that she learned about in high school. Actually, there was a group that she was involved in high school. And then when she went to Peru, the global leadership class that she was a part of, this kind of resonated with her again. And there's an opportunity for her to present.
Nice.
she had to do, a project. And so this is what she's focused her project on. So
what's she majoring in?
Pharmacy.
Okay.
So not necessarily hand in hand with these types of things, but
not really though. I mean, these people got to get their
stuff
to do things like
there's
that.
huge stories about the opioid epidemic and such stuff that's going on. So they all connect in some way. But I think one of the things that may come out of it is that they may start a group down there that on campus. Because one of the things that, as I was listening to the presentation, again, you talk about people who are susceptible to influence, right? When you're in a weekend spot. I think back, and it was a long time ago, but I think back to that first couple of semesters on campus and how many kids fell into that. I can't make it. I'm not really where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
I'm not in the in crowd. There's a lot of people that fall into that very susceptible
zone
area. And I would think that would be just a hotbed for people to be led astray. And Jessica from Purchase said, it's a big concern again. So now it's one of those things where just sort of community awareness. You may not be best friends with everybody in your hall, but be aware of who's in your hall. Be aware of your neighbors, your kids and things, your kids' friends and things of that nature. Because as you start to see people drift and pull away or shut out or make weird decisions.
Yeah. There's a program on TV about this. And I'm thinking 2 or 3 years ago, maybe it was an HBO program or something like that. And they were talking about, and they actually interviewed some girls that had been involved, that had been brought in. And then, and the weird thing I found was so strange was that the ones that they were interviewing, kind of like you said, they were lured in and they went in willingly.
Mm-hmm.
Because
seemingly, because they felt like
that's what they were, and then what happened was, it went from one thing to another to a little bit more, not just with this person that they were falling in love with, and all of a sudden they were, a slave or process. I think that one was on prostitution or something like that.
Well, and that's the other thing. It's not just sexual. I mean, some of this is almost indentured servitude. You'll get these kids and you'll train them up, right, to learn a craft. And then all of a sudden, now you got to pay us back for this training, and you can't pay us back and so you get stuck and
really,
you wonder about some of these sort of nomadic sales things that pop up in your neighborhood every now and then. You see a van come through, suddenly kids are getting out and they're selling
steaks and stuff like that,
or magazines or whatever it might be, clean price. Not that all this stuff is that, but you never know. I mean, they're here and then they're gone. But again, asking questions, is the kid selling magazines for a school, or is he from the area, or where does he's a school age kid in the middle of the afternoon selling something,
right? Or they have a little common sense,
right?
That doesn't seem
so. It's not. They tell you every one of these organizations will say, Jessica specifically for purchases, don't try to intervene yourself, if I get in, try to break them, because there's lots of different threatening things that can go on there, and plus, they're so upside down, and the one girl that was interviewed said, you never knew where it was going to come from. You could get praised and you do something right and somebody else gets beaten, or you get beaten for doing something. You just never knew where it was going to come from. And so you have this
keep them off balance so they can't
completely off balance. And then you have this bonding with this other group of people who are in the same circumstances as you. And somehow you don't want to see bad happen to them. I may be able to have an exit, but they're going to get messed up. She said there was a girl that she knew that suddenly was gone. Like, she didn't know if she got out. She didn't know if they got, they were beating her, and did they take her to the hospital, or they just leave her someplace? So it's really, really stark, and it is one of those things where, it is some kind of a crossover of the law, because it is somebody being taken against their will and being.
Oh, and there's people that specifically work this area of law repeatedly.
Yeah,
our firm doesn't.
No, but
not yet.
But even in that circumstance, when somebody does get out, it's not like everything's rosy then.
Oh, you don't have the years of damage that you have to be undone.
Well, you may be in an entire, like this lady was in an entirely different state. She's from Colorado. She finds herself and gets out in Indiana.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't know anybody.
Yeah.
Doesn't have any sort of support system. Has obviously a lot of injuries, mental, probably some physical, but there's not like you could go out and get a job. So how do you? So they're developing some group home type environments, but that's a real challenge too, because there's
when it's all over spread out.
Yeah.
You can't have every block.
Yeah. So, but so one of the things I talked to her about is helping understand how these girls might be able to qualify for some of the safety net programs that might be out there, just to get some ground level support.
Yeah.
So that's something I said if it was, I'd be happy to come down and talk about it. But anyway, so that was it was simultaneously like, wow, I'm really proud of my daughter for doing this. Man, this is dark.
Right.
This is hard to listen
subject.
to. This is really hard to take on. Yeah. So, but yeah, it was cool. And then we were at the in concert thing at Lifebridge Church on Saturday night, and
nice.
And then Sunday I was pretty much wiped out.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it. Jeez.
I was kind of not much. And then I think now you were saying earlier, now I had the rain into it. I don't think I really sprung back.
Yeah, we had a Saturday. All we did was work on our house.
Just beautiful this Saturday.
It was nice.
Oh, it was beautiful.
And regretting not getting outside doing other stuff and working on our house.
Oh, you were inside. Oh.
Well, we were inside and outside because we had to, haul stuff out to the garage and kind of building a pile of stuff. I got to run a dumpster to dump everything in, but we're getting stuff worked done and we're getting things done.
How long have you been in the house now?
Since June.
Okay, it's been that long.
So yeah, it's been that long, but we haven't unpacked everything. We all kind of got sideways and didn't just going with living. And then
life happens.
So we're like, okay, well now we're gonna focus on getting it done, and so far so good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, another topic you wanted to touch on tonight.
It's not a deep topic. Just it's something that came up. I was talking with a lady the other day that was concerned because she felt that she had been charged with a felony, and that she had. So the background is she was charged with a felony, and she ended up doing a plea agreement for a misdemeanor. But every time she looks on my case, she sees it as a felony. And so she's like, well, this has been on there for a while and I can't get a job and this, that, and the other. And I said, really? And I said, okay. So I pulled it up and was looking at it and just going over it. And within the case history on my case, you could see in there that she did sign the plea agreement for the A misdemeanor. And what happens is sometimes when people don't know how to read everything, the case, when it's initially filed as a felony, it's going to be listed as a felony. And the original attempted charge, or they're charging you for it, is going to be a felony. But if you plead to a misdemeanor and you get that misdemeanor, that is what the charge is.
Sure.
That's what you got. So if somebody runs a background check, they're going to see the misdemeanor. That's what they're going to see. They're not going to see a felony. So
because my case is a timeline.
In my case, it's everything that was docket reports.
Right.
It's the docket. So it just tells you what's going on in the case and what's happening, and it just goes through and lists it all out. But I think there's confusion there with people. Some people think they look at that and they think, oh, that's my record. I go look at it and it's not.
Right.
So the misdemeanor is what the record is.
So even if someone was to, let's say they went through a whole process and they pled out with no, like maybe just a time served and some probation.
Right.
There was never actually a charge, or they weren't ever actually convicted of something. So a charge could be listed as something at the beginning, and it could be entirely different.
Right, you can plead out as something completely different.
Yeah.
But that's what the actual charge that goes on your record would be. So if somebody actually pulled the record, they would see a misdemeanor.
Okay.
So like, say you got charged with an A misdemeanor, but you settled out with you negotiated out a C misdemeanor, they're going to see the C.
Okay.
So yeah, if they were to look on my case, because it's public record, they could see that you were originally charged with a felony, but they can't really do anything. It's illegal for them to do something on that. Because number one, it's not a charge you were charged with, but it's not a charge you were found guilty of.
Exactly, yeah.
And so to not give you a job because someone, said you had a felony at some point.
And that's an interesting, there's a turn of a phrase there where sometimes applications say, have you ever been charged with A versus have you ever been convicted of
A?
And in reality, that goes just to that. Just because you were charged doesn't mean it was anything. I mean, you literally just completely dropped. If you get and there's
been people charged and then you come in and everything gets dropped because the police didn't do their job right, and there was a technicality or whatever. And, all the evidence has to be.
You were arrested in a big group of people, and you charged sort of blanketly, and then it's like, oh wait, you weren't really part of that, so you're let go.
So the point is, you have to really carefully watch what you're actually charged with and what you're actually convicted of. And I think that sometimes we get in our own way because we'll say, oh, I think I have a felony, so now I can't apply for these jobs, so I'm going to apply for lower level jobs. When in reality, no, you don't have a felony. You only have the misdemeanor, and you can apply for other jobs. That, in this particular case, she was trying to apply for jobs that involve certain licensing and things like that. And, So
and that's something else people need to know. And this goes to someone I was talking to at one point who kind of got looped into something they didn't realize they were a part of. And before they knew it, they kind of tried to go about it themselves. They didn't understand that they could have asked for counsel. They didn't know how to do that. And everything's coming at them so fast. They walked into what they thought was one thing, and it turns out they were being interrogated for something else. I'm not saying this happens all the time, but people can get down the road in a process thinking they're one thing, or thinking that I know I'm not wrong here, and the law is going to take care of me, right? The judge is going to take care of me.
Now, here's the interesting thing. So I have dealt with cases before where I have seen the evidence was the police went and talked to this gentleman and said, hey, we need your help. We found this stuff, but we know that, you've kind of been exposed to it a little bit. Can you come in and help us out? And the guy, trying to be good and helpful, is like, yes.
Sure.
Next thing you know, he has a felony.
Right.
Because his helping out was building their case. Right. Because they're like, well, do you recognize this and this? And, oh, yeah, that's that and that's that. And where did that come from? Oh, well, that was probably from over there. Or that. And, and it's not, they're not, it's not, it's just, man, it just gets you, because it's just like, he's trying to do the right thing. Admittedly, he was bad. He did the wrong things, and he had done some stuff that was illegal. But at the same time, it's you kind of shake your head, and it's like,
it's one of those things you can do something wrong, and there's ways to sort of minimize the damage to yourself,
and that's
versus
exactly
just burying yourself.
And in this case, he ended up getting kind of buried because he fell for the idea that he was coming in to help, and it's it was never anything that was like, I don't know.
Didn't have a chance to back it down. Like you were saying, you may be charged at a certain level, but very easily get it negotiated down into a much lesser level.
Absolutely. And then in this case, the evidence would have pointed to only would have suggested this level of sentencing, but because of everything he gave them talking with them, it was like this, and then it had to fight to try to get it down a little bit lower and then not be quite so bad. And it ended up being.
Well, and I think in the example I'm thinking of, again, the person didn't really know how to negotiate what was going on, and I would say the charges, as I looked at the record and looked at the history, were a little bit trumped up. But she didn't know where to push. She didn't didn't seek counsel. She was trying to mitigate. She was just thinking same thing. I'll just go along, and if I'm good, they'll take care of me. And instead of probably getting a higher level misdemeanor negotiated thing, she ended up still with a low level felony, which is still a felony.
It's still a felony. It still has all the implications.
It is such a big difference maker. She didn't spend any time in jail, but she had a prolonged probationary period and some other things that she had to do. And but still, now, as we just mentioned right before this, we had a call about somebody from an expungement standpoint. There are things that eventually you can do, but you still have to wait for time to pass, and you've got that hanging out there, and it's
a lot of
tough
years
to work around.
And you got to do it can happen, but at the same time, again, if you're ever involved with a criminal charge, as soon as you know that you're even being looked at for it, you want to probably talk to an attorney, and you want to say, where am I at? What's my exposure? And it's almost like, I don't know, it's almost like a risk management type thing.
Absolutely.
Where it's, hey, what's my exposure? What do I need to do? How do I need to approach this? What's potentials? What can we work with? Because, you could go in and, like you said, have a felony charge that if it's negotiated right and if it's worked right with somebody that knows what they're doing, it could go lower than that. I mean, depending on where it's at and what level of felony it is, it could very well be that you're just going to get a felony. But at the same time, if you didn't do anything and you're saying you're being charged, that's a different ball wax. Then you got to find out what evidence they have and have somebody work that for you. Right. And just, it makes me cringe. Sometimes people want to go and do it all on their own because they're trying to save a few bucks, and then they end up losing a job because they're in jail for a while.
Well, and I think also
too strict.
They don't necessarily know that they can. Where do you bring in that opportunity for counsel? Maybe it's, we always learn about it. It's mentioned at the beginning during the reading of the rights, but
they don't have to read the rights to question it. They can just stop by your house and say, hey, we're talking about this. And
you haven't been arrested, or you haven't been, you're not really under interrogation. It's just
we're just asking for your help.
And by the way, you can refuse to answer questions.
Yeah.
Ultimately, your rights are going to tell you that, but you don't have to answer questions unless you're compelled to through some other process. But we're not trying to tell everybody secrets on how to do things bad. But I've just seen too many people who get too far down the road and they've missed that opportunity to get counsel just to help guide you. It's not necessarily even to get you free and clear. It's just to mitigate or minimize.
And even if it's just asking a question, saying, hey, I've got this going on. And I've had people come to work with me before, and they'll say, hey, I'm not sure if I need somebody right now, but this is where I'm at. And I'll say, okay, this is what's going to happen. You don't need me right now.
Right.
But at this point, you will. Mm-hmm. So you feel free to take care of it up until this point. Once you get to that point, call me. And they get up to that point, they call me, and we take care, we work with. And so it definitely helps if you're in any kind of criminal process, you're involved in any way, or been charged or pulled over for DUI or anything like that. Definitely get a hold of somebody as soon as possible. Like preferably the day they let you out and you come home and you're like, okay, now what do I got to do?
Because it's a pretty quick turn process. I mean,
it is, and then a lot of times,
arraignments and things.
Right? But a lot of times the DUI stuff, or OWIs here is what we call them, and they're going to have license suspensions with them and things of that nature. That depending on where you're at in the process, sometimes you can try to head that off a little bit and see if you can avoid that or get a temporary work in the meantime. Other times it's going to be, you're going to have that suspension for it could be a month or two before you get to your final settlement and understand what you're going to be doing. And then in that case, you want to try to negotiate to have that reinstated. So that's not a problem with work and things of that nature. So there's just a lot of different angles and a lot of different things out there. And, it never hurts to call and ask a question. And again, just kind of going in line with our normal theme on these is that, we're not trying to have you call so we can say, hey, you called for 5 minutes, so we're going to charge you $50. That's not what this is about. It's about getting you the help that you need. But at the same time, making sure that you understand and don't shy away from getting help soon enough.
Right. Well, and I think along those same lines that you touched on it, but I think it's really important. Clarify what your issue is.
Exactly.
It is, you may have this window of time. Maybe something was happening and you were questioned and nothing has happened yet. Or maybe there are charges pending.
Right.
You need to understand from somebody who understands the law how it's going to proceed.
Right.
I was talking to a guy that ended up with an OWI, and just from that's not my area, but just from our conversations and other experiences that I've had with other people, I could kind of help him understand what he needed to know and to call someone to talk through that process. Because when you have that window of opportunity to negotiate, you don't want to be sitting there going, well, I don't know where to go with this. And you need someone who takes the matrix and says, here's how we can get this done.
But here's the other thing, too. Keep this in mind. You can't wait till the last minute.
Right.
And the reason is that it takes time for an attorney to get in front of the prosecutor to try to negotiate on your behalf. Typically takes up to 2 weeks. So their schedules are pretty booked over there. And by the time you can get on, it's a week to 2 weeks before you can even get in the door to talk to them, let alone get an agreement, get it signed. So if you're saying, oh, well, I got a hearing in 3 days, can you help me? We're down to the wire here. I got to do something. Well, you need to really nip that in the bud ahead of time. So as soon as you get charged, start talking with me, and then we'll figure out a game plan, whether you need me at that moment or you can wait a little bit or whatever. We're here to help and try to keep you going. So.
And something else that came out of that was, you mentioned it, you may lose your license, suspended, right? Right. And it may say you're suspended for 6 months. You don't automatically pick up your license on day 6 month and 6 days in 1 month. Right. There's a process you have to go back through to get that released.
Right.
Generally, again, understanding that too.
Yeah. Generally,
wait for the call. Oh, your license ready?
Generally, the court's got to give an order on that, and then the DMV's got to honor that.
Right.
So that can be a little bit of a process, but
so you may get suspended for 6 months, and if you're sitting around waiting for something to happen, it could be another month or 2 months or whatever it might be.
Yeah, you never know. I mean,
you need to act on it and get the help that somebody knows.
Right.
If you're working with somebody at the beginning, we put little pop-up notes so that it's like, when I have a probate.
Yeah.
At 3 months out, I've got a little flag that comes up and says, "Hey, we can work through the process of starting to close."
Yep.
This is not like we remember every single thing that's going on every minute of every day.
Thank goodness for all these day timers.
We have all these little things,
little gadgets that
help
pop
us
up
along the way.
So
some good stuff tonight. We rattled off
some intense subjects.
I know.
Yeah, this is good.
Good stuff though. But
good stuff for our little office.
I know we're. I know I was talking to Isaac. The client he met with this morning was somebody who called in and who needed a document reviewed, and I bounced it over to Isaac yesterday, and they met today. That's a question. Somebody popped that question to me today. It was, why would somebody want to work with us versus, so the situation was a financial advisor was working with an attorney in another town, and I'm working with somebody kind of understand how this works, and it's like, wow, they're not taking new clients, and yet that's the only relationship that percent. So it's like when you have it, you're still going to try to refer people there. So, well, the thing that we do is we meet with people. I mean, we go. If you have a need, this guy called yesterday. Isaac met with him today.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that was. I had a call at 4:00 today from a guy who said, it's been lingering back here, and I know I've got to do something. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. His father had passed away, and I said, well, what are you doing tomorrow?
Right.
And I looked at my calendar. I had a gap. I'm going to be out of town the next 2 days, so I thought, well, let's try to get, if he's got time. Got this great little space. Come on down and we'll kind of chat through it and at least start to package. It's one of those things that weighs on your mind. You got to do something and you're not doing it, but you don't know how to get started. So just give us a call and we can help with that process.
But understand this is a difference in philosophy too. There are people that train out there, and there are people that believe that if they tell you, well, yeah, I can see it tomorrow. I got a gap here. I got a spot open. That's a negative. That you're going to look at that and say, oh, well, if you can see me tomorrow, you must not be that good because you're not that busy.
Exactly.
But the fact of the matter is we are busy. But what we do is we try to work. We'll stay late. We'll do what we need to do. We'll shift things around to try to help people when we can. Sometimes we have a gap. That's great. We'll fill it. Other people, so they make it a mandatory that it's at least set out 4, 5, 6 days sometimes.
2 weeks. I hear.
And that's company policy in some places. Yeah. You're not allowed to schedule something faster than 7 days, 12, 14 days, whatever. So there's places out there that do that. So that is something that's very different about us, is that we're here to schedule what works for you and what works for us combined and make it happen.
Yeah. I was literally at a conference last week, and that's what was last week or week before. And that's what it was. I'm going to tell my secretary not to schedule anything before 2 weeks.
Really?
Like, what? Well, I'm so busy. I'm like, 2 weeks.
I heard that's a lot. That's like,
I
mean, I can't even believe you get anything scheduled with that.
People don't know any better. I mean, if that's sort of the, this must be the way it is. I mean, I think that's what a lot of it happens. People just assume. Same thing in some of the criminal stuff. Like I can't get with an attorney for a week, 10 days, or because they are busy. I mean, some of them are busy. Their schedules are that packed.
That's true.
That's true. And so you have to take that into account. But it was just to make a rule. It was a little bit harsh for me.
Exactly. Well, and as we wrap up here, I say one of the blanket statements that I can tell you 100% of the time is legitimate. Get to your attorney as fast as you can. Do not wait and say, hey, I've got a court date this Thursday. Can you do anything for me?
Right.
The answer is most likely no.
Right.
So if you give people time, try to get a hold of somebody ahead of time, get in touch with them, give them, the further ahead of things you can get, the better. And I know it's tough to do because a lot of people are just like, they don't want to deal with it because it's one of those things it's like scary, it's annoyed, and so they try to just live life and ignore it until it just rears its ugly head. It's one of those things that you just make it nice and easy, make a phone call,
Well,
what's
there's
my
also
issue? What's the deal here?
Yeah,
We'll
get
help
with
you out.
somebody.
You know,
Yeah.
get with us or somebody else and get it taken care of as soon as possible, because then you can prepare and then you can do things with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for watching this. If you're watching it later, thanks for taking a peek at us if you stopped by this evening.
Check us out at ccSKLaw.com.
Yep, we're CCSK Law. We're here on Tuesday nights at 6:30. Who knows where we'll be next week? I don't know. 6:30.
Yeah, we're gonna do something different next week.
Yeah, we'll bounce around. We just
bounce
thought,
around, see what we find out.
again, with weather and everything, we're
Might as well be here.
Just hang out here. So again, thanks. If you're watching on the replay, you can always got a question in the comment box, and we'll check it out and get back with you. But you can certainly give us a call to 209-230-3600 or stop by ccSKlaw.com, and we'd love to help you out if we can. Thanks. Have a great evening. Now I have to figure out where the finish button is. Change pages.